The Sentinel is known to be reliable, fearless, disciplined, consistent, courageous, motivated, and skillful.
So do what you feel passionate about. Take chances.
All these qualities start from the mind. Your mind can be your worst enemy or your most powerful weapon.
The world becomes your library to help you to become better at your craft.
Is this the dagger?
Learn how to achieve greatness and tap into the Sentinel mindset.
This episode is brought to you by The Arena. The Arena focuses on helping law enforcement and security professionals achieve their ultimate work experience, curriculum, and fitness goals. Visit thearenatoronto.com. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this incredible, beautiful day. I'm very excited because we have a repeat guest host on right now, and I'm going to talk to you right now about the amazing coach, Tony Blauer. Now, I'll tell you this about Tony. He's a world-renowned self-defense, fear management expert, and he's been a visible force in the martial arts, self-defense, defensive tactics, and combatives industry for over 4 decades. And after 40 years studying violence and fear, Tony's new program now is the most important of them all. That's what I would say. And it's a bunch of self-defense courses, and he lays the best foundation down for this. Today, he's back in the studio, and we're going to discuss this new program entitled The Human Weapon Self-Defense System. Tony, welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey, man, good to be back. And I was saying offline that I love what you guys are doing. You know, I follow you on LinkedIn, and your content is always fresh, always diverse. And just congrats to you and your team.
Thank you so much, Tony. I really appreciate that, man. And I think what might be a good way to kick this off, and this is something that I was recently talking about with my wife. And, we talk a lot about news, right? I mean, whatever the angle of news is giving us on a daily basis. And a lot of it's usually negative. But I had a hard time convincing her that the world is getting more dangerous because she's only seeing her point of view or her reference. However, you just turn on the news, or you can just read a paper or talk to somebody, a neighbor, a friend, and you will always hear that something is happening that is intensifying and it's getting worse. What's your thoughts on that? Because I know a lot of this is built on preparing and being proactive on this. What's your thoughts on that, just on the danger of the world?
Yeah, I mean, there are people who will tell you, statistically things are less and safer and this and that. If we've learned anything in the last 3 years is don't trust the experts, right? Is absolutely don't trust the experts. You need to trust your gut. You need to trust your intuition. You need to trust your instincts. Every victim of violence, and I'm not even answering your question yet, I want to come at it more philosophically to start.
Sure.
It's if you talk to somebody who is a victim of violence, it wouldn't have mattered if they were a pacifist, if they were a liberal, a Republican, a conservative, a Democrat, whether they were trained or not. Like, what people don't realize is this, and it's something I do in some of our tactical talks. I tell people, like, violence doesn't care. Violence doesn't care what your beliefs or your opinion are. And it just happens. And when it happens fast. Violence loves speed. And so whether you go, well, no, the world, the media is just amplifying this. The bottom line is shit happens. And when it happens fast. And we need to be the first responders in our confrontation. The actual first responder, the person you call on 911, is the second responder. The first responder is literally you. And you need to make some critical decisions right then and there. So back to, if I were at the dinner table with your wife, of course, I'd be mindful and respectful of her opinion. but the reality is, and I was just actually talking about this yesterday, Constantine. There's like videos of all the violence in schools, like crazy, like 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds, like crazy shit that when you and I went to school, that never happened. Mm-hmm. There was maybe one fight every 6 months at the back of the school, and it was a clean fight. It wasn't like a fight. There was no shooting after. There was no stabbing. But this stuff goes on all the time. And what I said in my talk yesterday was that 11-year-old. There was a video that went viral yesterday of a a kid walking up to this 11-year-old girl, grabbing her by the ponytail, snapping her neck back, throwing her to the ground. And everyone's filming and this and that, and people are yelling, and of course, it was the appropriate demographics that we're not going to talk about, but I said, like, this 11-year-old that just did this to another 11-year-old is going to be 15 soon, and then 17 and 20, and you see it. I just saw another viral video 2 days ago of some guy jumping off a motorcycle. You might have seen this, breaking the back window of a woman who stopped in traffic. She's got a baby in the car seat in the back. She jumps out and freaks out. He headbutts her with his motorcycle helmet.
Wow.
Like what is going on?
Right.
This is happening in America and happening in Canada. It's not third world countries.
That's right.
So, I don't know what news station your wife is watching, but and listen, here's my point: is let's say that's only happening once in a while. My point is the spontaneity and the brazenness of these acts in daylight. It used to be, don't go to that part of town after midnight, right? Now you could be anywhere, and shit can kick off. And that's the whole thing that's been around, not just our new human weapon system program, but my life's work. You mentioned I've been teaching for 40 years. I'm 63 years old now, man. I've been teaching since I'm
you don't look it, Tony. You don't look it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I've been teaching since I'm 17. And my focus used to be martial arts, complex motor skills, learn this, learn that. I loved all that. A lot of people think I'm anti-martial arts because I talk about real violence. And I'm not. I just know that learning a traditional, classical, or any type of eclectic mixed martial art is a journey of perseverance, dedication, and discipline, where you're forging your body to learn to move a certain way. And I know from research, because this, people don't know my background. Since 1993, I've been training full-time military, law enforcement, public safety. So my students actually fight. I don't train sport fighters, although I have. I don't train professional athletes, although I have. My main audience are people like your audience who, you got a job as an executive protection agent, and somebody wants to get to whoever your principal is. If they're serious, they're going through you. And if that happens, it's not going to be slow and telegraphic. It's going to be sudden and dramatic. And what people need to realize, whether you're trained or untrained, is when there's sudden violence, there's a neurobiological response to the sudden violence. And this is really what differentiates our research from everyone else's. And that might sound grandiose, but it's not meant to be. I've been studying violence, fear, and aggression for decades, and looking at specifically what the startle response is, why it happens, and how can we control it or shape it, almost like a biological airbag, that if I'm standing here minding my own business and you go to stab me, punch me, sucker punch me, what have you, my hands are going to recoil. The head, there's a video that we show, actually, which is a good one we should do on a future show. I didn't think to prepare it, of a politician in Europe standing giving a speech, and a guy walks up on stage and sticks a gun in his face, and the gun malfunctions, or he forgot to chamber it, right? He goes like this, click, and the guy, there's no security, there's the bodyguards don't, he just, he had either real or fake credentials. So He just walked up on stage, everyone watched him, sticks the gun in the guy's face, pulls the trigger, nothing happens. He looks at the gun, and the politician looks at him and then goes, whoa, and you see him flinch.
Right.
And then you see his cross extensor reflex. This is all part of the spear system that we teach. Fire out to deflect, finger splayed outside 90. He starts to, this is such an amazing video, Constantine, because it's showing he's the first responder, and the guys that were supposed to be paid as first responders then rush the stage and take this guy down before he can reload or clear his jam.
Wow.
But it's an amazing, amazing video.
Well, send me that video. Send me that video. We can put it on some B-roll here
Yeah,
and let people show that.
I can actually get it to you real quick.
No, for sure. No, listen, I'll tell you why are you doing that? I'll tell you one of the biggest things that I've noticed here is most people don't think it's going to happen to them. Like they're almost in this mindset where that won't happen. What's the odds? What's the odds? I mean, what is the odds of your home being broken into? What is the odds of you walking down the street and being assaulted? What is the odds of you going to school and somebody picking on you? I mean, if there is an odd, there's a chance, and if there's a chance, it may happen to you. And I think that ignorance is what creates quite a bit of elements for people to be in a situation and they just didn't expect it. So everything that you're talking about here, I think is incredible to be proactive.
Bro, you just made me think of one of our slogans in our course. We say no awareness, no chance. And we go deeper into it. It's a cute expression, no awareness, no chance, because everyone, especially in your industry, that situational awareness is everything. Well, let's unpack that. Let's peel that onion. No awareness, no chance. If you haven't thought about the ways that you can be attacked or elements that would compromise some of the complex motor skills, like you say, okay, if the attack comes from this angle, we'll use this formation and we'll exfil this way. You go, well, like if a Ninja Turtle pops out from and like the point of the matter is that we need to be looking at how a surprise attack could happen. Where are we most vulnerable? We got a couple of really cool exercises that we do for that. But what it does is it creates what I lovingly refer to as the Socratic pause, where you sit there, and if anyone understands the Socratic methodology, is how can you ask a question where it inspires the student to come up with the answer themselves? Because that's a more enduring, a lasting education. But people who, if we just peel that onion a bit more of awareness and being proactive, if I think it'll never happen to me, then I will 100% have zero skills to respond to the sudden violence.
Right.
Because when you go, this will never happen to me, you won't even read an article on it. I don't need to know that.
Right.
I wish, in 1980, I was asked what I wanted to do, and I said I want to make the world safer. And I was talking to this venture capitalist, and he said, like, you don't think that's a little grandiose? And I was like, why? He says, well, how are you going to do that? I said, I think that there should be as many self-defense systems as there are people practicing self-defense. And he said, I don't understand that. What does that mean? And this is really important. It was something you said a bit earlier. And I don't remember the exact phrase, but it made me think of this idea that all of us are different body types. Mm-hmm. All of us have different psychologies. All of us have different experiences. I'm 63 now. What was important to me in terms of self-defense when I was 15 changed dramatically when I was 20, when I was 25, when I was 30, when my first kid was born. Now I'm an entrepreneur and I got a family, so I'd be driving somewhere when I'm 20 and a guy would tailgate me or cut me off, and I'd be like, asshole, you're 20 years old, you're filled with anger and testosterone. Well, I still feel that when somebody drives recklessly on the road, but now I got my wife and 3 kids in the car and a dog. And I'm going, okay. And I recognize this, back to the point about your conversation with your wife, is the world has changed.
Yeah.
People are freaking nuts. Did you see the viral video? I just did a whole class on it 2 days ago. A viral video of the guy that got murdered in New York, sitting there with his girlfriend after a wedding.
No, I didn't see that. What happened?
Guy walks by them in the street, and he starts vandalizing some stuff, and this guy walks up to him, and you can't hear what he said, but he says something, and the guy turns around and says, "I'll fucking kill you, man. Fuck you." And this guy comes up to him, he smacks him, and the guy's pushing him away, going, "Chill, man, chill, man." Guy pulls a knife, comes after him with a knife. This is all caught on film. Guy trips on a fixed bench, and the guy stabs him to death right in front of his girlfriend.
Wow.
They just caught him yesterday. Well, we dissected and debriefed it, and this might get me in a lot of trouble because, of course, the guy didn't ask to be murdered, but he made every single possible mistake an untrained person can make leading up to the violence. From the true safety model to understanding that fear is a messenger. Fear is a messenger to you, but it's also an external messenger, Constantine, like a radar blip. We're sitting here and we're monitoring the radar, and we see a blip. We go, hey, is this like a flock of birds or is this a missile? Like, we've got to determine, well, because how we react to the intel, we're about to deploy a whole bunch of shit, and this thing's going to escalate. And so it's a blend of instincts and intuition and training and education, but also managing fear. And this is all part of our program. My journey for 40 years has been trying to figure this out. As a young athlete who was afraid of every sport, but really also very skilled. You know, I was always, what beat me in every competition was my fear of fear, not my opponent. I always beat myself because I was worried about letting down my team or letting down my parents or letting down, or, you know, I was just always fixated on the fear. So,
right.
So you know, the whole system, the human weapon system is really this idea of not being paranoid and, okay, guys, we got to move out of the city and we got a homestead and we got to live in a cave and it's doomsday. And I've got friends that are they're gone, right? They moved out of California and they're out in Montana and Utah and you know, do you remember the name Alan Watts?
Yes. Yes.
So Alan Watts, I learned about Alan Watts through reading about, you know, Bruce Lee stuff. Alan Watts is a famous Zen meditation master.
That's right.
But he was a modern sage, and he said one of his most profound expressions was, if you can't meditate in a boiler room, you just can't meditate. And what that means is, a lot of times when people go to some sort of retreat to detox, it's like no phones, it's silent, it's tofu.
It's not real. It's not practical. It's not what you do to experience every day.
Yeah. And so those of you listening to this, if you don't know what a boiler room is, it shows you how old Constantine and I are. But what Alan Watts was saying is the ability to focus on what's important now, which is what the Zen mind is about, is, can you focus? Can you focus in a gunfight? Can you focus in a fist fight? Can you focus on stage when you got to make a speech? Can you focus when you need to de-escalate? Can you focus in a medical emergency? That stuff happens very infrequently. Those of you, I mean, almost everyone listening to this is in the EP field, right? So when's the last time you were in a real car chase, not a training car chase? 0 times?
That's right.
When's the last time, you know, your principal was kidnapped and you had to fight like Jason Bourne to get him back?
Right.
0 times. When's the last time you were in a gunfight? 0 times. And I'm not being facetious here. What I'm talking about is the fact that it doesn't happen frequently means you're not prepared for the real event in the way you think you are. This is very subtle, man. And it's why you look at police officers who have confrontations every day, but they still fail. When you watch violent encounters, how well are they shooting and how well are they fighting? Not very.
Right.
Why? Because they don't get to replicate the training as frequently as they experience the violence. It's a cascading effect, right? But here's the area that I believe is the missing link. And it's something I've been saying for years. I don't know if you just saw this. Have you heard of Dr. Bill Lewinsky and Force Science Institute?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So they're a big law enforcement research institute in America. They've done all sorts of famous studies called Force Science. Dr. Lewinsky emailed me a couple months ago. He said, hey, you're going to love this. He sends me a research article where they're hypothesizing that the startle response may enhance certain self-defense moves and may be an asset to officer survival in gunfights.
Hmm.
He goes, "You're going to like this. It supports your research." I'm like, I don't mean to be facetious here. You're 30 years late, sir. I've been weaponizing the flinch, and this is what I want all of your people to understand this. You're standing there. I remember this. I think I talked about it on your. I think I talked about this on your on our first show.
Right.
And it was detective detail around some politician in Europe. Someone comes running up, throws a pie in the guy's face, and I'm trying to look for a prop here. I don't have anything. But the guy's his lead guy is got a. I'm pretending these are papers. He's got a docket of papers, and his lead protector. You see him react, and guys are grabbing the principal, and you know that he's armed, and he's a right-handed shooter, and you see him doing this like on the film. Finally, he can't get the papers out of his hand because of the cross extensor reflex.
Right.
This is all part of neurobiology. Like, you never want to compromise your hands,
right.
But guess what? Your hands are intermittently always compromised, right? So it was really interesting. Like, every protector needs to understand when there's sudden violence, there were neurobiological responses to that bypass cognition. So if I said to you, "Hey, what would you do here if this happened?" You'd give me a theoretical answer based on some training or some practice. But the reality is your nervous system is going to do something different. And when you know what that is, you can convert it faster. And that's really the science and psychology around our whole program. It's almost like, and I used the metaphor on our first call about this biological airbag. It's, airbags save lives. And the metaphor, I want everyone listening going, "This sounds like bullshit. What should I look into this?" Is this idea that if you're a good driver and you're in good shape, that's your car and that's your nav system in the metaphor. But every good driver has been in a car accident because someone else hit them. Operative word is someone else hit you. If you're in a car accident, your situational awareness and your driving skill didn't matter, did it? You're sitting at a light, you were driving, and someone lost control of their car, or there was an accident and you were too close and it happened too fast, or somebody hit you. And people realize, like, that's the metaphor for the attack in the street. You know what the big mistake is? People who study martial arts equate that for sudden violence, like with an asocial predator. And it's completely different. So, that's been, I spent a year putting this course together. And I want to, like anybody, and this goes for your wife, to the most experienced person on your team,
right,
to the people that you coach and mentor. It's sudden violence does different things to us, and sudden violence doesn't. When it's happening, it doesn't matter whether you believed there was an increase in violence or not. It's like, it's happening. You don't have time to dial 911. What are you doing?
So what I love about what you're saying right now, and just to kind of go into the element we were talking about, focus, when you're in a situation and it happens quickly, if you're not practicing, if you're not aware, if you're not in tune, you're going to get knocked. And the thing is, when you were talking, it just reminded me of this scene, if you've watched the show The Matrix, where a bullet is being shot at Neo, Keanu Reeves, and he's in slow motion looking at this bullet that's about to hit him, and he moves away. The same way I would look at, if you're aware, if you're in tune, if you have a training set up in your system that can help you prevent, if you're faced with a situation, you're going to be able to react, and you're going to be able to potentially react in a very calm state of mind and help you in that situation. And it's almost like the same way, the confidence I would feel for when my son goes to Muay Thai, and he does that a couple of days a week. I feel confident that when he does this, because he's learning a skill. And by the way, he doesn't like it, but I'm having him doing this just because what is changing about him, and he's not even realizing this. I'm noticing his confidence is going up. I'm noticing that he's starting to shift. So what I love about what your whole program is, and which we're going to go into what that is that you have a skill now that you're going to be able to tap into. And I feel that, like anything that you do in life, you got to maintain it. You got to be you have to be aware of this on a regular basis. It can't be you just do it once and then I'm done, I'm programmed. No, it has to be something you got to put work into and make yourself aware. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what kind of modules or things that you can learn in the human weapon self-defense system?
Yeah. So incidentally, I had my team while we were doing this find that video, and I just sent it to you.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. So you got it. Your team can put it up or insert it while I'm talking. How fancy you want to get is
okay.
It's up to you. Yeah. So great question about that. I do want to say something, and for people that are listening carefully, the coolest thing about this, and I'm wearing my human weapon shirt. I don't know if you can see it. It's
right. I love that.
It's printed.
Hashtag human weapon.
Yeah. So some of your email and your size,
Thank
size,
you.
I'll send you a buddy. The human weapon. So there's a couple of cool things here. First of all, the premise is your wife is a human weapon. Your son is a human weapon. You're a human weapon. Everyone listening is a human weapon.
And that's not a bad thing.
No, it's to piggyback on Jordan Peterson's famous quote, like a harmless man is a useless man. What you want to be is dangerous, but have that under control. And that's for everything. You need to protect your family, your home, your finances, your health. If we think about it holistically, like proper hygiene is self-defense. Eating good food is self-defense, right? Looking both ways before you cross the street is self-defense. Mm-hmm. We just need to extend it and understand it from the science's point of view, not the martial art point of view. And I say that as a lifelong martial artist who is still a martial artist, who still practices martial arts. I recognize the difference between how neurobiology, kinesiology, and psychology impacts motor recruitment, biomechanics, kinesiology. When you look at let's say a cop getting into a fight with some scumbag in the street, mm-hmm. and they both look like shit, it's easy to say, oh, he should have done jiu-jitsu, he should have done Krav Maga, he should have done. What you don't realize as the armchair quarterback is that might have been the scariest moment in his life, and he couldn't access the complex motor skills that qualified him out of the academy in that moment. Because it's not an MMA fight where you study the guy's tape, you got 3 months to train, you go to a rules meeting, and those fights are dangerous, but they're not the same as a real fight. I did an interview with Anthony Smith, who's a world-ranked MMA fighter. He's had over 50 fights. He's a light heavyweight. He's a badass, like one of the top fighters in the world. One night, 165-pound guy broke into his house as a home invasion, some drug addict. He's home with his wife and his mother-in-law and his kids, and he goes after the guy because he's got to protect his family. He said, and I interviewed him right after the home invasion. He said, I can't believe I'm saying this, but that was the hardest fight I've ever had. How could a guy who's 190 pounds say that an untrained piece of shit in his home was a harder fight than 50 MMA fights against gladiators?
Why did he say that?
Well, you got to listen to the podcast. I'll send you the link. It's actually one of the most popular podcasts I had, because what I did is I break down how the neurochemicals of fear, of stress, of the psychology of fear, of worrying about the future. If I don't win this fight, I wonder if Dana will cut me. If I don't win this fight, I wonder if this guy's going to murder my family. And how you focus on that fear mm-hmm. can sap you or it can supercharge you. There's little psychological things we do in our course, and part of what we call our Be Your Own Bodyguard moment, where you ask yourself questions like, what will it cost me if I don't fight back right now? It's a very heavy moment in the training. Mm-hmm. But what was happening was, the concept is that when a stimulus is introduced too quickly, the body's and mind's startle response kicks in. Executive function is hijacked, which means you can't access your complex motor skills immediately. you've got to weather that ambush. So the entire human weapon system program is based on those decades of research, where I then took each concept and I turned it into 10 classes. So there's 10 chapters. The first chapter is really explaining in as best I can layperson's terms of like what I mean by you're a human weapon. And what I'm talking about when I say you're a human weapon is you have all the assets and all the qualities needed to protect yourself. Adrenaline, fear can be turned into fuel, right? Your startle-flinch when and this is the other thing is like, you said something very interesting, and I wanted to jump in, but I wanted to let you finish your thought, where you said, look, like when you commit to learning how to protect yourself, you've got to keep practicing. That's true, but it's not entirely true. And I'll share an amazing story from a fellow Canadian. I moved to the States, but it was another, when I was living in Montreal, and I was running these weekend clinics. And there was this guy named James came to this. He was just a businessman, scientist. Took my class, never heard from him again, because I do these like one-offs, like we do them now, one day be your own bodyguard. And we teach you, we approach it like we go, look, like if I said to your wife, like, do you want to put on a gi, sweat, and roll around with another man or woman on the ground? She's going to go, no, thank you. Would you like to go to Muay Thai, get kicked in the head, elbowed? No, thanks.
Right.
Would you like to know how to spot danger before danger spots you? Would you like to know how to avoid and de-escalate? Would you maybe tell me a little bit more? So there's more people who just want to avoid violence than want to practice violence. And so we put together these courses where they're taught with the same efficiency as a first aid class. Like when you go to a stop the bleed class, a tactical first aid class, in 4, 5, 6 hours, you learn critical life-saving skills. But you're not a doctor, right? But they're legit skills. So we look at self-defense that way. Now, guys, for those of you listening to this, this is where critical thinking comes in versus selective listening. You can learn to defend yourself in a day. You literally can. I've proven it. I've been doing it for decades. You can't learn a martial art in a day. That's where people get wrapped up. So if you say to your jiu-jitsu friend or your Krav friend or your Muay Thai friend, hey, this guy Blauer's got this one-day self-defense course, they're immediately, their brain's going, that's bullshit. I've been training for 5 years and I still get tapped out, right? So don't confuse, learning self-defense and learning martial arts. They're very different.
Okay.
The other thing that I wanted to add that's very, very important about the program is everything in it is made up of organic resources we bring. So there's nothing that says, well, I know you can't do this kick now, but in 3 months, if you do the stretching exercise, you'll be able to kick like this. Everything we teach, you can do right away. That's the design. For example, if I say, I want you to elbow this, someone's choking you, and I want you to elbow them across the face. And I say, I give the elbow like a foreign name. I give it a Japanese name, a Korean name, a Chinese name. And then I show some sort of warm up and I talk. Suddenly I'm mystifying it. But if I say to you, put your hands on your steering wheel, and you're driving and you forgot to put your seatbelt on, and you suddenly see a cop, put your seatbelt on, grab your seatbelt as fast as you can. Suddenly you go like this and you reach. Well, that's an elbow strike. If you can put your seatbelt on, you can throw a pretty fast, hard elbow. You've just never made the connection that the neural pattern of reaching for your seatbelt is the same coordination and range of motion needed to throw what we call a horizontal elbow. If your back is itchy and you go, oh, that's a vertical elbow, you scratch your back. It's a vertical elbow. If you can do a push-up, you can do a palm strike. The kinetic chain of a push-up is the same thing. For a knee. So we show all these ways to hack movements. Now, listen, a lot of the people who are listening to this podcast train in some martial art or some system. You wouldn't be in this industry, this community, if you didn't. This will still augment your personal safety and improve your self-defense IQ, because it's going to show you the more natural way your body wants to move.
It's like CrossFit almost, right? Where they try to like make movements that are more practical. Like, hey, instead of like, for example, doing like a tricep dip, for example, maybe, if you were like getting a hammer and, if you're putting a nail in the wall, it'd be like the practice of what you're doing is more relatable to what you do everyday life.
Yeah, I mean that can get gray area, a gray area for some people. But what they were saying is like you need to be fit for life.
Okay.
So you're talking about like the CrossFit modality,
right?
Yeah. So I'm one of my best friends is Greg Glassman, the guy that founded it.
Okay.
And of course, CrossFit was sold many years ago during the Summer of Love and all the craziness that happened.
Right.
And it's become more in many ways the sport of fitness and less about the constantly the functional movement stuff. So that's why I say it's a gray area. But the psychology of that was that you didn't want to specialize in one area because you didn't know what challenges life was going to throw you.
Right.
Did you have to run to save somebody in a burning building, or jump a fence, or pick up something that fell on somebody? So they wanted you to be very diverse in your strength, speed, agility, and coordination. But I wanted to hammer this point home, and then I'll go through the different chapters. Is this guy I told you I started off and went off on one of my rare tangents of this guy James shows up this event in the 80s. 20 years later, I get a message from him on LinkedIn. He's so just for people who don't know our system, SPEAR, spontaneous protection, enabling accelerated response. Spontaneous protection is the startle response, and then understanding a series of very specific drills we've created that help us convert the flinch faster. So between stimulus response is a gap time, and what we do in that gap time is the time domain of converting the flinch. So if you go to punch me and I go, oh, don't, and I do that, my conversion time is super long. But if you did that to somebody trained in SPEAR, they would micro flinch and their hands would shoot out into a SPEAR stance, which would anchor and lock and load them to attack the attack. And so you deploy your personal airbag, thus jamming the initial attack, whether it's a haymaker tackle, attack, someone grabbing at your weapon, or what have you. It's insanely powerful.
No, for sure. Tony, let me ask you this. I mean, you referenced like in your material that this system will work for any martial artist, and that's very understandable. For those that don't have a martial artist foundation or a base, your average civilian, can they pick this up as well?
100%.
And okay,
100%. And that was what I was in a long about way trying to say, is that you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu or Krav or Muay Thai, you're a cop, you're military, you're a human weapon. Your wife, your kid who's just starting, somebody just listening to this who has no background, you're a human weapon. In other words, the assets of startle flinch is a hardwired DNA level reflex, the startle response. Fear is an intuitive and instinctive mechanism that we all feel. The way we flinch is uniform across the human species. This is right out of a book on neuroanatomy, that the cross-extensor reflex is triggered by noxious stimuli, right? Which is big fancy medical speak for like something bad coming at you. Hands will come up to protect the head, fingers will splay, and the cross-extensor reflex will create space between you and that perceived threat. So we figured out how to turn that into a self-defense protocol. And it can be turned into something practical, tactical, or it can be something immediate, like when you're totally surprised. Here's the neat thing. It's kind of an interesting question, Constantine, because there's a video that we show in one of our classes of two MMA guys getting into an argument Friday night before their fight on Saturday. And one of the guys sucker punches the other, and he hits him with a left hook. And he's so fast, he draws the guy in, gestures with his right hand. The guy looks at him, whack, the left hook comes around and hits him. But after he gets hit, the guy who got hit, his hands come up in a startle response. So it was late because he got suckered, but the body still deployed it even though it was late.
Right.
What's my point here? Is if that was an untrained person, like the guy in New York who got stabbed the other night, the guy smacked him first. The smack hit him, and then his hands came up. Well, we have a guy who's untrained, and his hands came up to protect his head, and then we have a guy who's a professional fighter who gets hit in the head. It was non-telegraphic, didn't read it, and then his hands came up. What it's demonstrating is trained, untrained move almost identically the same.
Isn't that interesting?
It's amazing. Wait till you see that video that I sent you, the politician. Startle, flinch, push away danger, reaching, grabbing, doing everything. And I want, if you can get it into this show for people to look at or share the link, it'll be amazing.
Well,
because
we will.
If those of you listening here, if you watch that, that is the epitome and the inspiration behind everything we do. And if you don't think that incorporating this into your personal defense package is important, then you're not paying attention. Because it's, we always like to tell people all fights are dangerous, but the most dangerous fight is an ambush. And the ambush will trigger the neurobiological response where the consensual fight might not. In other words, if I look at you and I go, what are you looking at, man? What are you looking at? What are you looking at? And then we square off and we beat the shit out of each other and we both die, it was consensual.
Mm-hmm.
But if you walk by me and I don't know that you've targeted me, and then all of a sudden you swing at me, there's going to be a fear spike that's going to trigger the startle response. And the whole human weapon system is in part, how do you weaponize that? How do you become that human weapon? How do you take the fear spike and the startle response and make that an asset and a value to you in the confrontation? And so, yes, untrained people flinch exactly the same way. Trained people, and let me wrap that story with this guy, James. 20 years later in LinkedIn, he messages me. He says, hey, Coach Blauer, you don't remember me. I took your class 20 years ago. He's walking down the street, man. And a homeless guy with his hands in his jacket goes, hey, buddy, got any money? And James is walking by like this, man. And what do you do when you wave off somebody you got no money? It's a homeless guy, right?
Right.
You go like this, you go, sorry, man. And he goes like this. He's walking like, sorry, man, I got no money. So he's got his hands figure splayed as he's doing it. The guy, right hand comes out of his pocket, man. Screwdriver, goes to shank him.
Wow.
And as he goes to shank him, I'm going to hit Bob for you.
Okay.
As he goes to, so James is walking by, he micro flinches. So the right hand's coming in here. He goes like this. Oh, and blasts the guy. Well, that's the protective spear that he had been taught 20 years later.
Instinctively.
Yeah, because just the idea where I said your startle response is the equivalent of a biological airbag, and it's in you. And if you don't know about it, you can't activate it, because the airbag automatically deploys and fills up to save us in an accident. But if you go like this, I usually have a balloon here. Oh, here it is. Oh no, shit. I usually have a balloon here to do this demo, because when you go to blow up a balloon, if you just do this part, if you just go, it stays limp and doesn't do anything. You need to go.
Right.
You need to express the power. Right. That's the whole science and psychology of this.
Amazing. Honestly, you made that example was incredible. And I think that's the beauty of this. Are you able to give us a little taste of some of the chapters, for example, or things that you go, what are some topics that you focus on this session?
I popped it up here because like there's 10 and I didn't want to leave them out. They're all so they all go sequentially. They're all like Lego blocks, and they start with first understanding your human weapon and going, oh man, that's cool. The next thing we talk about is the Trojan horse. So in this day and age, de-escalation is huge. Optics on everybody with the cancel culture and everyone's woke. You got to be so careful in what you do and what you say. So we have an entire system. We've been teaching de-escalation strategy since the 80s. It blows my mind that it's suddenly important. Like if you trained with me in the 80s, you were taught nonviolent postures, which is the negotiator stance, the half negotiator, arms crossed, hands on hips. We teach 4 classic stances, and they're used to facilitate de-escalation because body language is 60% of communication. So if your stance is like an interview posture, or you're indexing your weapon and you got a hand out here and you're going, please don't come any closer, or you're just standing there like, and that's what a lot of people do. They don't know how to stand. So the Trojan horse metaphor is this idea that the potential threat in front of you sees the wooden horse, but doesn't see the soldier inside, which means that if CCTV or people are filming you, they always go, that guy Constantine, he was being so reasonable. He was talking to the guy, he was trying to calm him down. And then all of a sudden, I saw his hands come up, and it's a way to smoke screen our entry if we needed to take control of a situation, or what it does is it primes the nervous system for the startle response. Okay. So if I look at a full spear here, and as an example, I'll do this here. And incidentally, I always point this up with my Bob dummy. You guys can hear how heavy that is. I always make fun of influencers online because they always have a Bob dummy that they kick the shit out of, and it's always empty. like they fly around. But if you listen to this, right?
Yeah,
that's full of water.
Right.
That's how powerful that move is. I mean, if you weaponize it, if you're here and you're like, oh shit, and you really get in on that, it's a quarter extremity movement where you can really control and pin somebody. But the nonviolent posture concept, if I do the full spear, so if I hit somebody with a full spear and I'm in this position where I've nailed them in a full, so startle-flinch, push away danger, kinetic energy drives out, the whole nonviolent posture principle is this idea of I can't start from here. I can't say, hey, I don't want any trouble, but I can be over here in our negotiator. I can be in the full spear, and I can be over here in our half negotiator. So what we teach people is that the spear and the nonviolent postures are connected, and the nonviolent posture anchors and primes you to protect yourself.
Okay.
Right. So almost like a telescopic baton.
That's right.
I go here, and then I go, well, let me see arms crossed, and the whole system just comes in here. And now I'm talking to somebody, but my mind and my body are ready to protect. It's very, again, it's using classical conditioning to create neural patterns.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Really, guys, I spent a year putting this together, but I spent 40 years researching it.
That's right. You've done your time.
Yeah. So that's lesson 2, nonviolent postures. Then the spear. How do you sharpen the spear? How do you make it so that when you deploy it, that person knows they were hit?
Okay.
Because you want it. You obviously, we have an expression: if you mean to do it, make it mean. It's
right.
got like if you hit somebody lightly, you'll get ready for round 2.
Yeah, exactly.
So number 4 is a whole class on what we call tank, turret, spear stance mobility. So these days you're not fighting mano a mano, and that's another thing is a lot of people when they train they're in a sparring modality. When you're in the street, you're not sparring, and you better not be thinking like you're sparring, managing distance and on your toes. You're going through somebody or getting the hell out of that, right? Someone's pulling a gun. And you're close enough to do something, you got to go through them. You got to get your principal out of there. You got to go through people. You got to create an opening. So this is all like a chapter on mobility and stability and balance and control. Lesson 5 is what we call our spear form. It's understanding a little bit what I showed before. If I'm in a nonviolent posture and I flinch, can I turn that flinch into a palm strike? Can I convert the rotation of my body into another palm strike? How do I use palms, forearms, elbows, knees, shins in a fight? The way we teach a shin kick it's not like learning a Muay Thai kick. I've trained with some of the best Muay Thai guys in the world. They're devastating, but it takes years of discipline and conditioning to kick like that. So like we teach a kick that you can do, you can learn right away.
Okay.
It's just there are natural ways to do stuff. They don't generate the same force. They don't necessarily generate the same speed. But and I love telling the story. In our one-day class, there's a block where we have everybody doing knees. And it's a one-day class, so it doesn't attract like high-level martial artists, you can imagine, right? So imagine this. I do this. Picture you're in the class, okay? We just finished the knee block, Constantine, and I go, and I'll use this, like how if your wife just did 10 knees for the first time in her life, how good would her knee be? From right? So I asked this question. I go, who here thinks their knee strike sucks? Might your wife have put up her hand if she was in that class?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And because what we're thinking when we're learning any self-defense is, will this work? There's always a thought of like, will this actually do something to somebody? So I go like this. This is a true story, and I do this almost every time I do this class. This is how frequently this happens. I go, who here thinks they've got the worst, shittiest knee in the class? There's always like 2 or 3 people, and I make a joke. I go, why would you volunteer that you've got the shittiest one? But okay, let's take you. Let me see it. And they throw a knee, and I'm going to demonstrate like a simulation, like a shitty knee. So we're here like this, and they go like this. We're usually holding out like a med ball or a target, and they go like this. They do some shitty knee. And always, did you see you giggled?
Yeah.
Did it? There's always like 5 guys that giggle like that. So I always grab one of them. So imagine your wife just did that and you giggle.
All right. I'm in trouble.
I would say,
now.
Constancy, come over here. I'd have you do this. I do this in class. It's so much fun. It's got to play along, visualize this. I have the guy walk over, and then I say, you ever see Van Damme in a horse stance? You know, kind of like in that, like get down there. So I have him get in a horse stance and have him get as low as he can. And I go low. He's down here like this. He's like, oh. And then I take the woman. So then Bob's in a horse stance here. And then I take the woman who just did that shitty knee.
Yeah.
And I walk her over right in front of the guy. And I say, knee him in the balls right now. And she goes, for real? I go, yeah, for real, knee him. And she turns and looks at it. The guy always goes like this. Wait a minute, what? What do you mean? Do you get the lesson?
Yes.
Here's the lesson. A shitty knee to the balls is still a knee to the balls.
That's right. You're still going to flinch.
Right? Yeah. You're still going to eat it.
Yeah.
And so what I'm explaining to people is like, of course you're not going to have like a knee, like a world champion,
a pro knee.
Boxer. But if you need to fight.
Right.
You're a human weapon. Now, if after the course you go, you know what, I want my knee to be faster, stronger, go for it. But you already know if you can walk up steps, if you can do this, and I tell people this all the time, if you can put your foot up on a bench and tie your shoe, look what I just did. You've done 10,000 reps of a knee.
Right.
You've done your 10,000 reps.
That's right. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Moving on. I'm going to do the whole seminar here. Nobody will have to.
Yeah. Why don't you do this? Why don't you read some of the titles, right? The chapters, so we can also go over some other questions as well.
Yeah. I get excited about it.
Listen, it's amazing, man. I just think that I have so many questions to unpack here, and I do know that you also got to fly out of here shortly, so I want to make sure I get some of those out.
Okay, I appreciate you, man. Next we have, so they get this lesson number 5 is the spear form and understanding your personal toolbox.
Right.
Number 6 is tactical fitness, right? Which is, well, you don't need to be tactically fit, but you might go, well, what is tactical fitness? So for example, can I do a push-up that's going to make my spear or palm strike stronger or faster, right? So we've got, doing a traditional, like a CrossFit squat or an air squat, we've got a tactical squat, right? So so if you're doing stuff in there, you can implement that stuff intelligence. So okay. Chapter 6 is tactical fitness. Chapter 7 is understanding the ground.
Right.
understanding, how to manage violence on the ground. Number 8 is about more movement, like multiple assailant stuff. Number 9 is how to develop more speed and power. So there's a hack that I figured out, and where is it? Stand by with a here it is. One day I was messing around with a light resistance band, and I put it around me, and I started just doing stuff like this, man. Just messing around,
Right.
with doing stuff here, and the it slightly stimulated the nerves and the muscles, but it didn't create resistance that slowed me down. When you took it off, you're way faster. So it develops speed and power, and it's, you can get one of those for $5 or $6 online. So how to develop speed and power are the lessons 9 and 10. And then we got a couple of bonuses in the program. Like I teach live 4 times a week.
Oh, wow.
Zoom. Yeah. So right here, I call this our tactical garage gym, and I teach in here 4 times a week.
Tony, how long is this? Like the session that we're talking about here right now, someone purchase it, how long should they dedicate as a timeline to make sure that, they're doing the course? Is it a 1-day course, 2-day course? Like how long is the module?
So this is not a subscription. I want to point that out, right?
Okay.
So you own it, and you could watch it as many times as you want, which I think is important. It's self-guided. Like you do what you want. So it's like some of the classes, like, the lesson might be 15, 20 minutes of me teaching and talking and going through stuff. And then how much time do you want to put into that?
Okay.
You can put your own amount of time. If you went through it straight without talking or doing any drills, it's like 6 hours. So it's like the 10 lessons add up to like as if you spent the day with me, but you were just watching me teach and talk.
Okay.
I filmed it as if you booked a private block with me on Zoom.
Okay.
And talking to you first person, saying, I need you to practice this. It also has it's probably my first book I've ever come out with. It comes with I think 80 plus pages of each chapter has a manual with it explaining even deeper into the stuff. So I'm not giving a direct answer like how much time, because that's up to the individual. You might listen to chapter 1 and go, okay, that makes sense, and then you never listen to it again.
Right.
And then the spear form you may do every single day. Like where you're learning like the actual tools.
Okay.
You might do that every day as part of your like pre-shift ritual. You're going to go through certain movements just to warm your nervous system up.
So once you have the course, you have the course. You could always go back to it. You can reference it. It's not one of these things that are timed. Just to get an idea if somebody wanted to have, continuously evolve with the learning.
Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah. So they get the 10 lessons. We're also giving a month in the tactical garage gym with me, which is great. That's included in it, and that's like $97 a month.
Okay.
To actually train with. It's included, and we also have 2 other cool bonuses. One of them is a 3-hour seminar I do with 2 of my instructors, showing force on force and partner drills of all the principles. Because it's one thing to have self-guided learning, like you're at home, you're on your phone or your laptop, and you're doing the stuff and you're learning the stuff. But there's a part of your brain going, well, what's that look like if I was actually doing it with another person, force on force? So we include that in there. It's a 3-hour kind of seminar workshop that shows a whole bunch of really cool drills and little scenarios.
Okay.
And then there's also a bonus webinar I did on fear management, because I really believe at the end of the day, the most important and missing ingredient in most people's arsenals is their understanding of the psychology of fear and how to manage fear.
Absolutely. Look, I love it. And I really want to thank you for this today, Tony, for spending your time on this. I will say this, the last session that you did through the arena where we had one of your reps come down here and do a
Yes.
course. I remember I spoke to some of the people that attended, and I remember there was an accountant there, there was a mother there, and then there was, I believe, a banker there. I was expecting to hear things like, yeah, I'm an executive protection agent, or I'm a police officer, or I'm this, but I was very perplexed almost to be like, wow, like, so I actually asked the next question. So why are you doing this? Because I'm very fascinated with this. And they said, because everything that we just talked about today, everything that we just talked about is they wanted the awareness, they wanted that skill set, they wanted their mindset to be shifted there. And I think it's so needed, it's so necessary. I know that if I was to provide what we're talking about today as exposure to my kids alone, just my family,
Yes.
I would feel at peace knowing that you're tapped into something right now that could very well help you. And we're not living in a world that is all peace, love, and flowers. I mean, we wish it was, but the
Sure.
reality is we're not. So to me, that they can have this as a skill set they can tap into is immense for me. And I'm very much excited to share this, Tony. And we're going to have all the links for those that are interested in basically purchasing this and booking it, and basically leveling themselves up. It's needed.
It's I'll tell you this, I make a joke. I know gun laws are really strict up in Canada.
Oh yeah.
Do you have certain teams that are armed, or are they all unarmed?
So all our teams in Canada cannot carry. So
Wow.
nobody in executive protection can carry in Canada.
The bad guys can, right?
Yeah, the bad guys can. Yes. They're exempt.
Yeah. And it's the same thing. We do a ton of training over in the UK. I just did something with another firearms group, and I explained to them, like, because a lot of people go, well, yeah, if that guy attacked me, I would just choke him out, or I would slip and hit him here, or I'd kick him, or I just shoot him, or that's why I carry. And that may be true, but that's not what this is about. This is about improving your self-awareness, improving your situational awareness, managing your fear, and avoiding extreme violence. But if it comes to you, it's going to happen fast. Statistically, violence loves speed. And what you need to do to combat the speed of sudden violence is you need to have better mind speed. You can go, oh, hey, watch how fast I jab. Oh, you see that? Look at, oh, I got fast torsion fibers. Let's do this jab drill. Let's box. That's consensual. If I'm at a bank or an ATM or parking my car, or I bump into a guy in the street, like the guy in New York, going, hey man, take it easy. And then suddenly the guy's got a knife and he's coming at you. You don't have time to hit the Karate Kid stance.
That's right.
You're not going, what the fuck?
That's right.
Right. You're like, and it's not even the physical. And this is what we see sometimes as armchair quarterbacks. We watch the scene and we go, I'd have just done this. You don't know what you would do. Think about the time you forgot your phone in the restaurant. And you went like this. You're walking to your car, and all of a sudden you went, fuck, my phone. And you were like panicked. You're a grown adult panicking. Where's my phone? Where's my phone? And you just think that of a guy, right? Have you ever done something stupid like that?
Oh yeah, of course.
So like everyone listening, we've all done that. My phone. And suddenly we stop walking. Our situational awareness disappears. Our hands are we're not even thinking, check your pockets. Our hands are flailing like this. Your mind is racing. All because you forgot a phone. And you think you're going to be fucking Jason Bourne and John Wick when a guy suddenly pulls out a knife or takes a swing at you? Give me a break. And the evidence is there. Don't just listen to me. The evidence is there. So I try to make this fun. A lot of people don't appreciate my sense of humor like that. Like
I love it.
But that's true, right?
It's so real. It's what you're saying is so real. It's so practical, right? We've all done that. And you're right. I mean, look, the other day, I have an aquarium in my basement. I would be considered a big nerd in the aquarium industry, but I love it. But anyways, one of the things that obviously have an aquarium, you have water leaks that can happen sometimes. Right. And I know how to basically stop anything when it comes to the aquarium setup. But when I went in there and I saw it on the floor, instantly, it's like, everything went out the window for about 3 seconds because it
Right.
was like, wait a second, like, but when you quickly tune back into it, I know this, I got this.
It was an ambush.
Exactly. It was an ambush.
And so I describe an ambush as a stimulus that's introduced too quickly.
Right.
Because if I say to you, look, you're going to get attacked on not this corner, but the next corner, it can still surprise you, but you're walking out there, you have what we call ACP, awareness, consent, preparation. So your brain, but if that leak was your first leak, it wouldn't have been 3 seconds.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
You're 100%.
And so that's the point of this, guys. Everyone listening to this, I don't care if you're trained or you're untrained, understanding how to turn fear into fuel, understanding how to convert your flinch, i.e. weaponize your flinch, access your biological airbag, buys you time to make critical decisions inside the reactionary gap during a violent encounter. And what will happen when you start to learn this is that will extend to other parts of your life. There's a transcendent element of this where you go, wow, if I can start to wrap my head around how I would handle sudden violence, then slow violence is easier. And then, wait a minute, all conflict and confrontation management pales in comparison to the sudden violence. Well, let me figure out how to solve this problem in my relationship, with my finances, with my fitness, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So there really is a ton of value in this beyond.
Well, let me ask you one question. I know you're pressed for time. So if you look at law enforcement, if you look at policing, for example, and there's been countless of stories or incidences or situations where a police officer will go into a situation and sometimes he draws his gun way too quick and he shoots and kills because his reaction is right there. I feel that this could be a huge asset to law enforcement, like a huge asset, because you're also looking at things in a different way. I know they have all the tools, but before you get to that last stage, right, you could have gone through a different process if you just had some of this training in place or tapped into it.
Yeah, it's super hard to just make a blanket statement. You're right in terms of the logic.
Right.
If you have a wicked fear spike and you don't know what to do with that, you are probably predisposed to either hesitate and then you get run over. Like a lot of people get injured, maimed, or killed.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you don't hesitate, you overreact. The pendulum goes the other way, and now you're like, oh shit, and you're out with your weapon. There needs to be a huge reform in training all over the world. Like I alluded to earlier, the law enforcement world is just now considering that the startle response might be, at a academic level. Hey, the startle response is something to look at. Well, I mean, I've trained 10,000 plus police officers and trainers. There's lots of agencies and organizations that already have this system in place, in policy, in some places.
Mm-hmm.
That they're looking at that going, well, welcome to the party. You finally got here.
Right.
But you're right. Everybody in public safety, law enforcement, anyone in public safety, anybody who has to move towards the danger.
Yes.
By design, because it's their like, I'm not a cop. I'm not in the military. I'm not an executive protection agent, other than, like my good friend Pat McNamara says, you're the EP of yourself,
right.
And you refer to that as your be your own bodyguard principle.
Mm-hmm.
But I can run away if something happens. But if I hired you to protect me and you run away, I'm like, what the? Like,
that's it.
Dude. So. If your job, I'm not talking about being a courageous bystander. If your job is, hey, we got some unknown threat over here at this location. Someone said they heard somebody threatening somebody, or they might have seen a gun, or shots were fired, or they had a knife, and you got to go there and you have no clue what to do. That's a training issue.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people in the field, in the industry, who blame their department or their agency or their organization, or they got their EP license, but there was like this much training in it. it's incumbent on you. It's up to you.
That's right.
It's up to you. First of all, if you want to be successful in this industry, you better be trained. And if something happens, you've got a moral, ethical, legal responsibility to do something.
Right. Well, I know for myself, Tony, if I was a cop, I want to come back home alive, right? So even if I don't get that training, even if I don't get that training from the police service, I'm going to go out and invest in myself so I can come back home to my family. And I think that's the key here as well, is that you can't just throw caution to the wind and say, well, they're not training me and that's it. Let's call it a day. No.
Yeah.
Let's look at it differently. You still have an opportunity to level yourself up.
Interestingly, 30% of the police officers that attend our courses pay for it themselves. Their agency goes, no, we're not paying. And they take the time off and they go, because those are the 30% that go, I want to get home and see my family.
Exactly.
It's a dangerous job.
Exactly. I love it. Tony, this is fantastic. The human weapon self-defense system, we're going to have links posted all over here for those of you interested. And I highly believe anyone listening here, you should be tapping into something like this. It's something that, as Tony said so well, it is something that you really, really need to tap in. And I'll say this, you have the experience in the years that you've put behind this. This is not, somebody on YouTube putting up something that they've kind of caught from different areas. This is your work and your research. And Tony, you do have a very reputable name in the industry. So I really respect what you do. I respect what you've put down. And I actually want to dive into it myself very much so. And I also want to get my family into this as well. It's actually a great, like to bring it back full circle to my wife's conversation just the other day about all this and to make it full circle is like, look, let's look at it from this end, right? And there's absolutely zero harm. There's only pluses here to help you level up. And I love that. And I want to thank you for spending time on this today with us. Yeah,
no, I appreciate it. I love what you do and I love your community and my whole thing, just 20-year-old Tony, 43 years ago, hey, I just want to make the world safer. And depending on what your occupation is, you could be a babysitter, you could be a mom, you could be a protector. You look at that knife attack that happened at the playground in France like a month ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why this just popped into my head when you're talking about your wife, but I made I had a nanny for my son. I had custody of my kid when he was like just 3 months old.
Mm-hmm.
And but I was traveling a lot. I made my nanny take all my courses. She didn't want to. I said to her, Marcy, you're my son's bodyguard, so you're taking the course. Okay, but it was like just and it wasn't like I didn't make her become a martial artist. And I had a martial arts school. I could have said, sign up. I said, no, I want you to be able to understand the timeline of violence, detect and avoid, defuse and de-escalate, and if push comes to shove, how to defend and how to protect. And it's no different than if this was a podcast on a new tourniquet that I developed, everyone would want to get it. But it's a self-defense thing. It's like, nah, I don't need that.
Right.
Because if this was medical, you go, well, that could happen. Somebody could cut themselves.
Yeah.
I want to, but it's weird. People don't, ironically, interestingly, it's, and I said this at the top of the show, and I'll wrap with this. Every single victim of violence, if this was a seance and we could talk to everyone killed in violence and go, hey, would you have liked to have had a little bit more knowledge going into this last fight? Their answer would be, yeah, well, I'm dead. So yeah. Right. And I'm not trying to be facetious.
No, it's true.
It's just, why wouldn't you want to know what to do? Absolutely. And it's not a guarantee, but it's better than, it's better than the helplessness of not knowing anything.
Well, look, I'll tell you this. Everyone's been educated now. A couple of weeks ago, we were audited by one of the ministries, and very nice experience. The auditor said to us, look, right now we're educating you and letting you know what needs to happen. That's what an audit is, by the way. It's an opportunity to educate and get you in line. Exactly. But they said, but next time, if anything doesn't fall in line with these areas, well, you've been warned. And the same way here, everyone's being educated. And, the hopes is that someone's going to listen to this and put the application in place. What you don't want to see have happen is someone puts it in place because something bad happened and they didn't put it into place to begin with.
And that's always, it's interesting. Like when your house gets broken into, then you get an alarm system.
That's right.
A dog. Your car gets broken into, you know, you go, oh, I'll start locking the car. I'll put an alarm in there. What happens after people are emotionally or physically injured in violence is they become more of a recluse. Their confidence is impacted. Their self-esteem is impacted. They don't want to try things. So the PTSD element on a physical attack is very different than when it's a property attack. And bad guys only want one of three things: property, body, life. So it's a short fucking list.
Right.
But listen, everyone listening, you're a human weapon. If you want to amplify your skills, do a little research on the program, and Constantine will share the links with you.
Absolutely. I can't wait for that. Tony, I want to thank you for your time today. I wish you nothing but the best of success. And, everything that we've done encounter-wise has been virtually. I'm actually looking forward to actually meeting you very shortly. And hopefully we can make it happen this year or next year. Yeah, let's do that, man. Amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, have a fantastic day. And remember, as Tony said, you are a human weapon. Have a fantastic day, everyone.
This podcast is brought to you by Executive Protection Lifestyle Canada. Make sure to drop by next week and don't forget to subscribe.